Today's video will be an update about TFT Set 3. The set has been out for 2 weeks now and there have been no Galaxies, but there have been a lot of different changes to the game that the impact has been relatively unknown before, but after playing for a little bit, you've started to realize there's a couple of changes that you may have noticed that are really important. The first change is the fact that win streaking got changed a lot. Generally speaking, you're chasing streaks a lot when you play the game. If you're winning, you want to win consecutively. If you're losing, you're trying to lose to a point where you can then win. That's generally how you play the game right now because you're given so much gold for win and lose streaking, and win and lose streaking start at 2 wins or 2 losses. If you start ping-ponging between losing and winning, it'll directly affect your econ and how much you get, and that's very risky in this current meta where econ means a lot. Now, why does econ mean a lot in this current meta? Well, you're given a lot less gold at the very beginning of the game, and what this does is it causes stage 2 for you to end around 20 to 30 gold at the PvE round. That's a lot different than before, where you used to be able to end at 30, 40, or even 50 sometimes gold if you started with 2 items. In this current state, what the major change has been is that you don't push levels unless you're win streaking. So you don't push for level 6 at 3-1 or 3-2 unless you're winning, and you're more than likely going to level 6 at 3-4 after you have a couple more rounds to generate econ. A lot of this is also due to the fact that there's less damage done right now, I would say early, and a lot more damage done later, which allows you to econ a little bit more in this current set than you could before. And here comes my juicy part. After 2 weeks, I want to talk about my favorite champions from the set, as well as the comps I like to play them in. The first champion that I think is really fun is Jhin. Jhin is reminiscent of set 1 Draven, in that you can lifesteal tank with Jhin from very long range, and he hits super hard, essentially 2 or 1-shotting different units multiple times. The best items for Jhin are GA and Hurricane. GA is really helpful so that your Jhin lives long enough for the Darkstar synergy to fully envelop him, because the more Darkstar units that die, the remaining Darkstar units become stronger. Additionally, Hurricane is very good because once he gets all that strength, he's able to 1 or 2 shot even the secondary targets. When you get into in-game, a lot of times you'll have problems where you're not able to kill enough threats fast enough due to the opposing AoE. Kind of Hurricane allows you to get that kind of AoE, as well as if you have Celestial or BT on this champion, you're able to lifesteal off the Hurricane proc as well. My favorite comp to run this in is 6 Darkstar. This comp is pretty obvious. There's 6 Darkstar units, you put them all in. On top of that, you put in Ashe for Sniper plus Celestial and Lulu for Mystic plus Celestial. This makes it so you don't have to get BT in your composition, and you can save yourself an item slot. On top of that, you're able to grab Sniper, which is a really big buff for you, a huge damage buff as well. And so it's a very straightforward composition. If you're able to get Darkstar spatulas, you can start replacing the weaker units in this composition. Now, what should you be worried about when you play this composition? The biggest problem, I would say, is Bramble Vest. When you're playing Jhin and you're playing against Bramble Vest, a lot of your damage gets negated due to the crit reduction. Especially if your third item is IE, you will not do any damage to units and other champions if they have Bramble. Be very careful about this when you're positioning your Jhin, and it's not too big of a problem unless you're really tanky, but it's still something you have to be worried about. Additionally, because Jhin is all physical damage, when you play against 4 Vanguard compositions, it's somewhat difficult for use as well. They're not very meta right now, but that could change very quickly. If 4 Vanguard becomes more meta, make sure to tech in a Last Whisper as your third item, because that armor pen will let you actually be able to beat those compositions. My second favorite unit, and a unit that's been nerfed a lot, is Shaco. What do you want to run on Shaco? Shaco is kind of a different beast. If you're not able to get Celestial in your comp of running a composition that allows Celestial, you need a BT, you need a GA, and you need an IE. Alternatively, you can also run an RFC, and those are the main 4 core items. You kind of mix and match whatever you can get, but ideally you want those items. It's a comp that wants a lot of BF swords. When you're playing Shaco, I personally don't think Shaco is very relevant late game unless you can 3-star him. So the composition I like to play most with Shaco is actually mech infiltrators. Now this is a very scary comp to play because if anyone else is going mechs, you can't do this strategy. When you're playing mech infiltrators, you want to be staying at level 6 and rolling your excess gold at level 6 away. And now, what are you looking for when you're rolling this excess gold? You're looking for the 4 infiltrators. So you're looking for Kha'Zix, Kai'Sa, Shaco, as well as Fizz, and you're looking for the mechs, which is the Fizz, the Annie, and the Rumble, and you're looking to 3-star almost everything that you see, with the exception of Fizz because it's too hard to 3-star that unit. and you keep rolling your excess gold over 50 so you can keep max econ while you're playing this strategy, and over time you'll slowly collect 3 stars for the composition. You'll be mainly stacking the mech alongside Shaco or the Kaisa alongside Shaco depending on the items that you get. In this situation, this is the fastest way that you're able to get a 3-star Shaco, and 3-star Shaco allows you to essentially one-shot a lot of the bigger problems that you would have otherwise. So if you're running into Asol 2 a lot and you don't know how to deal with him, with an IE and Shaco ulti, you'll kill Asol instantly in one hit. And on top of that, you'll be able to lifesteal a lot of that kind of threat back. Be kind of worried about Zephyr. If you're playing a mech composition and your frontline gets Zephyred, then what ends up happening is you're struggling a lot because their team doesn't move because they have no targets and they're able to position really easily against your jump in. And especially if your Zephyr hits the mech, you lose essentially 3 units of pressure for the initial round, and that's a lot of pressure. And all of their damage is gonna be focused on your carries, which is not what you want. Additionally, you want to be careful of Bramble Vest. It's also something that Jhin suffers against, but if you have IE, you're going to get wrecked playing against Bramble. And the third thing you have to be worried about is Lulu. Lulu polymorphs the closest units near her. So if you can't one-shot Lulu, be very careful about running into a Lulu 2, because what ends up happening is all of your infiltrators will get shoved in will die instantly. Or get polyed instantly and then suffer a death. Those are the biggest problems and something you should keep in mind. My next favorite unit is Aurelia. Aurelia is a great unit in the sense that she can use a bunch of different items, and she's really, really interesting in that she constantly resets on every kill with her ulti. For items, perfect items on Aurelia, you want IEGABT. This allows her to kind of run train on units and kind of go crazy. She's able to kill people with just her ulti, as well as lifesteal a shitload on the ulti, as well as stay alive and be relevant a lot for pretty much everything that you want. There's alternative items as well. The double BF item is very good. QSS is very good, especially as a frontline melee champion. You'll tend to run into a lot of CC as well. And she's a very kind of versatile champion, whether you want Seraphs or AP. She's pretty flexible in whatever you can give her. I just put the perfect items that you want that you can go for them, but even if you have a death cap, you can kind of make Aurelia work sometimes. The composition you want to run with Aurelia is kind of interesting. It's the 6 Cyber composition is the most popular. As a warning for this composition, similar to kind of the Darkstar composition, but even more so, 6 Cyber really requires you to be level 8 to find Echo, because the Cyber spike from 5 Cybers to 6 Cybers is insane. And so if you don't find Echo with this composition, you are pretty weak. Additionally, in this composition, it's very difficult to kind of spread around your items a lot and still find perfect items on Aurelia. Keep in mind that more than likely you'll have either cyber buff on maybe half of your units, or half you're really having one less item and spreading the items around to make sure your units all get cyber buff, especially during the mid game, as you tend to try to transition to get to level 8 without dying. Now, how do you get to level 8 while doing so? Obviously, if you hit 2-star cyber units, you're good, you're golden. One of the best ways to do it is actually the blaster route. You can run 2 blasters early game with a red buff or a giant slayer to help your early damage, and just keep the blaster in till the late game. So 1 Lucian 2 with red buff or 1 Lucian 2 with giant slayer allows you to kind of weather the mid game really well, and you should allow you to econ with a lot of health going into late game. The comp ends with 3 BMs. So it's 6 Cyber, 3 BMs. The third BM is usually Kale. Since there's 2 BMs in Cyber, a third BM, especially to help your main carry Aurelia, is pretty obvious. So you'll tend to stack Aurelia in this composition, and then the other Cyber unit, Echo. Echo just takes whatever items you give him, usually tears, anything else supplementary after you spread around your 6 Cyber units. And then afterwards of that, you'll want to run MF. MF not only puts in your 2 blasters to help your the rest of your composition, but also gives Kale the ability to get Valkyrie. So it's a really nice synergy to kind of round out your composition. Don't get stuck in this situation though. It's kind of situational. You can definitely run like Lulu 2 or GP if you find them as well. But that's the overall composition. Speaking about Kale is actually one of my favorite carries in this set. Kale is one of the only carries in the set that can use a lot of bows. Every time I have a lot of bows, I tend to run Kale a lot. So what ends up happening is Kale is a champion that can use bows because RFC extends her ulti all the way across the map. RFC gives her huge benefits, and so it's incredibly good on the champion. In terms of what you want to buy on Kale, I tend to like RFC Rageblade in GA or RFC Rageblade Hodge. If you don't need the defensive item, and it allows you to really do incredible amounts of damage from very, very long range. The comp I like to run Kale in is 4 Brawlers Kale. It's kind of similar to Brawler Blaster, where you're running 4 Brawlers, 4 Blasters, but you're running 4 Brawlers plus Kale, plus Valkyrie plus 3 Blades. Now, how does this kind of work out? You take the early Shen to help with the front line. It also gives you Chrono with the Shen. Additionally, you want to add Xayah, but you can add any BM as 3rd BM, and then you'll run Kai'Sa to give you Valkyrie. And then what ends up happening is you have Valkyrie plus 3 BM at 8, and at 9 you can then go and tech in Lulu for Celestial with Xayah, Blade Master, ideally. The composition is a little bit difficult if you don't get Celestial in, so keep that in mind. You can maybe drop a Valkyrie for Celestial if possible. Valkyrie is a huge DPS increase for your main carry. This composition, the only thing I have to say is be very careful of your Blitz positioning. When you're playing Blaster Brawlers, Blitz is put next to your Jinx to help enable her get an early kill. But in this situation, what ends up happening is you want to put your Blitz forward, because your Kale needs to splash on the rest of the units, and if Kale's shooting sideways, what ends up happening is she's not doing her waves directly onto the enemy team. So be very careful about that and push the Blitz up most of the times in this composition. But aside from that, it's pretty straightforward. It just needs a little bit to a lot of gold to get off the ground. Anyways, thank you so much for watching this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I'll see you guys next time.